Hi, I'm Birney, Rudert, CEO and President of Unite to Light, and you all asked us some questions, and I'm here to answer them today. So let's dive in. First question, what's the coolest or most creative use of a solar light you've seen? When I first started working here, I heard a story from a partner, and she had taken 100 solar lights of our loop lights to a community in Kenya and given them to the school children there. And the next year she went back and none of the school children had the lights. And she was quite upset and got a meeting with the chief and went in there, and she was livid. She'd paid for these lights, given them to the community, and none of the kids had them anymore. And he kind of holds up his hands and says, I understand your concern. I gave them to the boys that are watching the goats so that they could keep the lions and the hyenas away. And she stopped dead in her tracks and she was like, I will bring you more lights. So I don't know if it's necessarily a creative use, but I think that sometimes we underestimate the need for something as simple as a solar light. And so that's always stuck with me, that it's really important to engage with our community and make sure that we're meeting their needs and not just kind of what we think they might need. How do you choose communities or countries to work in? We've distributed over 150,000 solar lights to people in 80 countries, and a lot of them are distributed in 100 at a time, carried in a suitcase on an airplane. Some of them are distributed in thousands or tens of thousands, depending on where we're going, but it really is a variety. We always look to the need. We want to make sure that we're helping folks who are living without electricity. That's our mission. We try to gauge impact. How much impact are we going to have with our products in these places? How close is the electricity grid? What else available resources do they have? And then our distribution network. This is incredibly important. We have just 2 staff at Unite to Light. And so having a distribution network that's really strong, that knows the communities that are working in community, is incredibly important. That's really how we make sure we can get the lights where they're needed most in the most efficient manner as possible. There's also events that tend to happen. So whether it's a man-made or a natural disaster, we tend to respond to those. So when the war in Ukraine broke out, Ukraine became a huge area for us to distribute lights in. The next year, there were wildfires in Maui, and that became a huge place that we were sending our solar chargers. So it really depends on what's happening in the world throughout a given year of where our lights and chargers go and where our distribution network is. What's one story that stuck with you where a solar light made a bigger difference than expected? This makes me think about the research we just completed in Honduras. We distributed 200 solar lights, 100 to a rural area and 100 to an urban area. And by urban, we mean essentially next to a trash dump that still had no power, but was near a city center, or nearer a city center. At least it didn't take a donkey and a truck and a few days to get to. But essentially we asked those folks, what they expected to use the solar lights for. And a lot of them replied, as we would expect, I'm going to use them to read and further my education. I'm going to use them to do my chores, to reach the latrine at night without falling down a cliff. But I think the biggest thing was the community connection that we hadn't expected to hear. A lot of people very excited to be able to talk to their neighbors, to talk to their grandchildren, to read a book for social reasons, not just read a book for learning, but that community connection. And I know there's kind of an epidemic of loneliness, especially among the elderly, and having access to light and power really can make a huge difference in these people's lives. Something we don't think about. When the sun goes down, their day ends. And so having access to a solar light really means the difference between being able to have a conversation and build community and having your day end when the sun goes down. Why not just send big solar panels or batteries instead of our lights and chargers? Our products are really made for individual solar use. There are a lot of amazing products out there that will light a home, light a school, but that doesn't really help when a student needs to take a light home with them, and that's really what our products are intended for. Same type of thing when we're working with that midwife that's doing house calls. She can't take a giant battery and a giant solar array with her. With our with our charger, it weighs a pound. She can tuck it into her backpack and be on her way. And so having a portable, reliable source of power and light is really important to a lot of the folks that we live with, that we work with. And also the cost is a lot lower, right? I can send a solar light almost anywhere in the world for about $10. Where, if you're doing a home solar system, we're talking hundreds of dollars. So, being able to help somebody who has no electricity, no light, a simple solar light is often a wonderful first step in what we call the solar ladder. We want to get them using solar electricity, get them off of kerosene, get them off of candles and burning wood for light at night, and get them started to a healthier and more sustainable form of energy. What sets Unite to Light apart from other organizations in the space? I think there's two things that make Unite to Light unique. One is that we manufacture our own lights. When we started in 2010, solar lights were quite expensive, and we really wanted to make something that was less than $10, that was durable, affordable, transportable, and we were able to do that, which is pretty amazing. And we are, I think, to date, the only nonprofit that actually manufactures our own lights. So that definitely sets us apart from other organizations. There's a lot of good solar lighting manufacturers out there, and we don't consider them our competition. Darkness and kerosene is really what we consider our competition. So anytime we can collaborate with those organizations, we love to do that. And I think that viewpoint also sets us apart. And then I think our distribution network, our partners that really get these lights where they need to go, is incredibly important and significant. And so having this network of amazing organizations, large and small individuals, from Rotary and Direct Relief to a student going to Nepal, I think that really makes us a very special organization. What does success look like for Unite to Light in the next 5 years? Since I started here, I've been saying I'd love to be out of a job. Unfortunately, there are still about 700 million people living without electricity, and you add the word reliable in front of that, it more than doubles. So I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but I do think that reaching more people is always a goal of ours. Getting more lights, more chargers into the hands of those in need, reaching folks who are even at greater risk, folks who are displaced, folks who are experiencing disasters. I think that's another huge aspect of what we do. And then last, we are looking at some new technologies. I love our lights, I love our chargers, and we were talking about this, but there is a need for kind of the next thing. We've been working with schools who want to have, a couple computers, and clinics who want to have a vaccine refrigerator. And so we're currently testing right now in 2025 what's called a power pole. It's an integrated solar array and battery pack. And so we're really excited about the potential there to be able to provide kind of the next stage of power and light and communication to communities in need. And maybe one day everybody will have access to light and we won't need to be here anymore. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your curiosity. We really appreciate your support. Unite to Light is a nonprofit, and we couldn't be here without all of you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to answer questions. If you've got a burning question, you know how to get hold of us. We'll leave our email address and or DM. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.